Welcome back to the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. Today, I got to speak with a unique individual, Mike Adler. Mike is the goalie, starting goaltender at St. Joseph's University just outside Philadelphia. He has a very unique story and a unique path to where he is that included a little bit of a sidetrack after he got bit by a shark after his freshman year of high school. Guys, if you like today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Enjoy my conversation with Mike Adler.
Mikey, what's up, buddy?
Not much, Sean. Just enjoying my summer break and getting ready to go back up to school.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today. You and I have known each other for probably 3-4 years now?
Exactly, yeah. Good 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. I think when we first met, were you entering college at that point, or were you just coming back from your freshman year?
Yeah, I think the first year I was going into my freshman year.
So,
and then right now I'm a junior.
You're a junior. Did you redshirt any years?
Yeah, I redshirted my freshman year, so I'm a redshirt junior going into my senior year academically, but still have 2 more years of lacrosse eligibility left.
Oh, baby. And you've been at St. Joe's all years, right?
Correct, yep. All going to be 4 years.
Nice. St. Joe's is outside Philly, I believe?
Yep, right outside of Philly, about a 10-minute drive. So kind of in the perfect spot. Doesn't feel like you're in the city, but you got that closeness, which is awesome.
So being a South Florida guy, how is it going from being in South Florida to now being in like a northeast-ish type city like Philly?
Yeah, so Philly, I mean, everybody has their stereotypes of Philly, and I didn't really have any, which was good. But I went up there and I learned about it, and everybody was saying you're not gonna get the people, like they're not your kind of people, but they are so passionate, and it's the culture that really threw me off. And they love the Eagles. They're super intense, which coming from Florida, being a pretty laid back person, it was definitely a change. And then obviously the winter was a little rough, but I didn't mind it, and kind of the first week or 2 weeks of it being under 30 degrees, practicing in full sweats and everything like that was a little rough, but you get through it and move on. So it's not that bad. I like it a lot.
So going from obviously the southeast, South Florida kind of deal, and then having to deal with the relatively inclement weather of the northeast, did that affect your game at all?
Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't say all that much, just because I mean you're in full sweats. Once you get moving, you're fine. So I would say not really. I mean, it hurts when you're warming up. You get nailed by a ball on the leg, and it's 20 degrees out. You're just like, oh, that sucks. But you move on from it, and no, I wouldn't say it affected me too much.
Yeah, the ball seems to be a little bit harder when you get there. Just to share with you, Mikey, you probably know this, but I started my career as a goalie as well. So my first year and a half to 2 years up at Stony Brook, I was a goalie. So I know exactly where you're coming from when that ball hits you on your inner thigh and it's like 20 degrees outside. It tends to feel a little different.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yep.
So obviously you have a little bit of an unconventional path toward where you are right now. And St. Joe's is a Division I school. They, obviously are kind of in that middle of the pack, that mid-major-ish, if you would, kind of take it, more of in the football sense. But it's kind of like obviously they're not competing for national championships, but they're competitive in their own right, correct?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Some better years than others. But so obviously the path there has not been conventional. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a step-by-step process of you kind of starting your career in lacrosse and then how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah. So played baseball kind of my whole life, and then once I hit 5th grade, my brother quit baseball and started playing lacrosse, and I joined his team, and we needed a goalie. So obviously, if anybody has an older brother, they understand that when your older brother tells you to step in the goal, you're going to step into the goal. So I was kind of a target practice for him for a little bit, and then
And when was
went to
this? What year? What grade was that?
that was fourth grade.
Okay.
I joined the team, so I played fourth and fifth grade in like the local rec team in Fort Lauderdale, and then I went to middle school up at St. Andrews, which was a lacrosse powerhouse for Florida, and had an awesome experience there. Was kind of getting a little burnt out of lacrosse though when all my friends were in Fort Lauderdale, so I decided to go to St. Thomas for high school. So left St. Andrews, left a lot of good buddies, moved over to St. Thomas. Didn't really love lacrosse all that much my freshman year. Wanted to kind of just be a professional surfer and surf and hang out with my friends. But I stuck with it, luckily, and got hurt at the end of my freshman year, which was tough, right as I started liking it again and wanted to play in college. And then sophomore year came around and was dealing with that injury for the first part of the year. Kind of moved on from that, became the starting goalie, started to fall in love with the sport again, wanted to play in college really badly. I had the urge, but not a lot of Division I schools were looking at me, and a lot of them already had goalies. So I was looking at a couple D3 schools, and then junior year came around. I did the whole summer series of a bunch of recruiting camps and everything like that. It was a bunch of D3 schools, which I visited, and they were awesome. But I still had that passion to kind of play with the best and try to be the best. So I decided to hold off on committing. And then luckily at the end of my junior year, St. Joe's kind of reached out to me, or I reached out to them first and kind of convinced them to take me. They had another goalie, and the coach gave me a shot. I'm forever grateful for him. And I as soon as I got up there, took a little visit, and I loved it. I loved where it was. I loved kind of the mid-major, the opportunity to play. They had a good goalie, but he was graduating, so that was definitely a plus. And it's worked out these past 2 years. Now I'm here.
So this was Coach Taylor Ray that recruited you?
Correct. Yep. Coach Taylor Ray, who's I love, one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And he's been an awesome coach and an awesome leader and an awesome friend.
So let's take a step back a little bit, back to your freshman year of high school, where you're kind of on the fence about lacrosse. What are the things that started to kind of push you away from that passion and love for lacrosse?
I think I just had a greater love of surfing, honestly. And all I wanted to do was surf. If there was waves, whether they were 1 foot or 10 foot, I would try to miss lacrosse practice and go surf. And I just didn't love how like organized it was, and I didn't love my coach getting on me and stuff like that. And honestly, I was looking back on it, I was a pretty spoiled kid my freshman year. I was kind of just thinking, I'm just going to play lacrosse, or I'm just going to surf and not play lacrosse, and not really thinking about my future all that much. And I wasn't playing. I was a backup goalie, which was really tough. So I was like, this sucks. Screw this. I thought I should be starter, and that was just a bad attitude to have. So I definitely wasn't a good teammate my first year in that, or my freshman year, and that added to just me not liking it.
So, the question becomes is, where would you be without that adversity? Do you think you'd be in the same position you are in now? The fact that, hey, man, you had to kind of sit and watch for that freshman year, even though maybe in your mind you're like, hey, man, I deserve to be starting. Like, do you think that affects you today?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was in a similar situation my first year of college where I was the backup goalie, and I learned from that. Instead of pouting and getting angry about it, I would just do my absolute best to not just get myself better, but get the people around me better. And as a goalie, you have a great opportunity to do that, whether helping out in drills that aren't really meant for goalies, or doing extra shooting after practice. So overcoming that adversity is really what it's about. That kind of mental toughness I've tried to carry with me since that, and Yeah, I'd say it's the mental toughness kind of developed from that adversity.
So I happened to be speaking to the Dartmouth College coach Brendan Callahan over the last couple weeks, and we've kind of rekindled our friendship that we've had for like the last 10 years or so. And one of the things that he proposes to his players is just that adversity. What are like, and he asks like, what are some of the most adverse situations that you've been under, and how have you grown from them? Can you kind of recall any like of those experiences in your kind of youth slash prior to college that have kind of prepared you for where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, to start off, I heard that podcast, which was awesome. I thought it was really interesting and really insightful. But going back to the adversity and overcoming adversity, it kind of translates into mental toughness, and that's something our that my coach really has instilled. And I think it was Nick Saban. He got it from Nick Saban or something like that. But it's like, what does it take to break somebody? So like overcoming that adversity, whether how big it is, you're going to be stronger from that. And I guess my freshman year of high school was the first big adversity I faced. I got bit by a shark, tore all the tendons in my foot, couldn't really move. And it was a rough 3 months of recovering, and I definitely didn't handle it the best, but I did manage to make it through the recovery process. And I was like, wow, like that was like insane. That could have gone a lot worse. Like it just produced a huge feeling of gratitude. And then once I overcame that, I felt like, okay, I can kind of overcome anything. And with it, like the more adversity you overcome, the kind of stronger you become.
So obviously, the elephant in the room is you got bit by a shark. So let's kind of take a second and kind of go through this experience. This is after your freshman year of high school. Were you? I kind of like read the article a little bit, but obviously coming from the horse's mouth comes a lot better. Can you kind of explain when it was, and maybe like the situation and the whole kind of scenario? I mean, you probably rehashed this a million times, but just to indulge our audience here.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick version, but it was the end of my freshman year. Lacrosse finished, and we saw a tropical storm off the coast of Florida, and we're big into surfing, so we obviously drive towards the tropical storm, which happened to be the best spot was in Sebastian Inlet, which is kind of notorious for sharks. But my buddies and I weren't really, we never really care, or we're not really scared of them. We see them all the time when we dive and fish, so they're always around us. We know that, but we've never been too scared. So we get out there at probably 6 a.m. We surf for about 4 hours. We're pretty exhausted. We're like, let's go in. We'll grab something to eat, and then we'll get back out. And the waves were amazing. So I caught my last wave. I was about 20 yards off the beach, and then I'm getting back on my board, and I just feel all these rocks clamp down on me, and like it just felt super violent. And I obviously knew it was a shark right away, and it grabbed my foot. It tried to pull me under, and I kind of dipped into the water a little bit. I got really freaked out and ripped my foot out of its mouth as hard as I could, and I saw it do a little tail slash and swim away. So I immediately paddled in as fast as I could, and I'm yelling at my friends, "Hey, I just got bit by a shark." Obviously, none of them believe me.
I was gonna say,
And
like, I wouldn't have believed you.
yeah, typical. But I'm on the beach, and I'm hobbling up, and I look down at my foot, and it's like I barely have a foot. Like it was really disgusting.
Holy moly.
And yeah, there's blood pulsing out, and thankfully there's a guy who's watching this, and he's comes running down, and he helps me up towards the beach, and then a crowd of people come around me, and obviously by that point my friends realize what's going on, and they come running over, and this guy who happened to be there was an army medic, so he knew exactly what to do, and took my leash, wrapped it around my thighs, a tourniquet, and he's like, "I got some stitches in the car, I could stitch you up." And I'm like, I should probably go to the hospital. My mom wouldn't really like that. So we call 911, and we go to the hospital. My friends come with me. They drop me off in the ambulance, and then they go right back to surf in the same spot I got bit, which tells you something about surfers, but or just my friends.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
Yeah, it was a pretty unreal experience.
So, is Sebastian Inlet? Is that like where some of the fresh water goes to the seawater there?
Yeah, exactly. It's probably like a mile from the inlet, but up there the water's really murky, and it's about like an hour east of Orlando.
Yeah, and basically in that area as well, especially with a storm coming, you probably had a good amount of like sea life and fish just running amok over there, which just made a shark soup, basically, right?
Exactly. Exactly. 100%.
So kind of like, you know how they say like the chances of getting bit by a shark are very, very low. You increased your chances of doing that because you put yourself in that situation a little bit, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That explains it well.
So, okay, so you're on the side of the beach. You just got your foot mangled. What's the first thing that goes through your mind?
Wow, I'm actually not in that much pain.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
uh that's actually the first thing that went through my mind. I was like I wasn't in shock, I don't think, and I wasn't really freaked out, which was weird. So I was just like, I'm not in much pain. Everybody was freaking out around me, but I was one of the most calm people there. And yeah, and it didn't like flash, my life didn't flash before my eyes or anything like that. I think I was too young and too like arrogant to even think about that stuff. So it wasn't really anything too profound.
But I think in that kind of lends you to the mentality that you have to be a, super talented in my mind Division 1 goaltender. Basically, you can have your foot in the mouth of a beast, get your foot mangled, be on the side of a beach, and be like, all right. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that sets you up to be a better goaltender?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure you know that like when somebody scores on you, when another team goes on a 5 goal run, you got to have the mindset to kind of just brush it off and get ready for the next whatever the next thing is that's thrown at you. And that's the mentality I've really had for all my life about everything, whether it's lacrosse or surfing or just schoolwork or something like that. It's kind of like going back. What does it take to break you? And is 5 goals in a big game going to break you? I mean, some people, yeah, but for me, I really try to just brush it off, not really think too much about it, and get ready for the next thing. So yeah, it's definitely helped me as a goaltender for sure.
Do you tell this story to people often?
I try not to, but sometimes you do have to pull it out, and it is pretty interesting. It hasn't happened to too many people, but if I'm just everybody, my friends will joke to me about it, and they'll be like, "Oh, you tell everybody that you got bit by a shark," and I really don't. I try, I keep it in, but they're like, "Yeah, like use it for girls or stuff like that." I'm just like, I don't do that, and but yeah, I don't really use it too much, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I mean, I will attest that I've known you for God knows how long now, and you've never heard it. And I think the only reason that you had mentioned it is like, hey, this is worthwhile to talk about during the podcast. And I looked at the article that was in national syndication about what happened, because obviously everybody loves a story about a shark bite and a shark attack, because it makes news. But knowing that, are you hesitant about going back into the water at all?
No, not at all. Uh, I mean, I'm just like, what are the chances it happens a second time? But I'm definitely a little more scared. I'm definitely a little more scared when something touches my foot when I'm surfing, whether it's like sea lice or a rock. But no, I'm not too scared. I'm pretty scared of spear fishing. That bugs me when you spear fish. There's sharks all around you, especially in
Yeah.
the Bahamas, and that doesn't really sit well with me. But I still do it, and I'm just a little bit more careful, I guess.
I know you're a passionate lacrosse player, and we'll get more into that. However, I want to learn a little bit more about your passion for like surfing. Where does that come from for you?
Uh, I don't know. It's just something I thought was really cool. I thought, oh, surfers are the coolest people when I was younger. And I was like, ah, can I get a surfboard? And finally, my parents got me a surfboard. It took me like 2 years, like really long to learn how to surf for some reason. But I would bike to the beach and have my surfboard, which was a pain to bike and carry the board. But I stuck with it, and it's I've met some amazing people while on surf trips, and I've been to Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and then recently I just got back from Indonesia about 3 weeks ago. I was on a little 15-day surf trip there, so that it's been awesome, and it's it provides a really good balance to get away from lacrosse and just kind of life for a little bit, and it's almost like meditating, I guess, for me.
That's awesome, man. And there seems to be, some kind of correlation with people being on the water and having that kind of flow state, so to speak. I've heard many a surfer be interviewed, and there has to be this kind of like a letting go and surrender, because guess what? Like, you can't control the waves, yet there's also this idea that you do have control of the things that you can do. Do you think that plays into your performance as a goalie? Kind of like, hey, I'm part of a team. I can't control every shot that comes in, but the ones that do come my way, I make the best out of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something that I definitely struggle with. I think with surfing, no matter what, as soon as I get in the water, I'm laid back. If I don't catch a wave, whatever, there's going to be another wave. That's the mentality I truly have. And then in lacrosse, I try to bring that mentality with me. Like, it was a goal, like right on the crease. Maybe my defenseman could have gotten there, but I struggle with like, oh, I should save every single shot no matter what. Like, no matter who we play, I'm the goalie. Like, if they can't score, they can't win. And that's led me to some pretty stressful times, and where I get super down on myself. But it's interesting that you bring that up, because it's something I need to get better at, and I definitely haven't mastered it yet. But towards the end of last season, I started kind of stopped micromanaging everything and started just controlling the things that I can control. Freshman year, my redshirt freshman year, I was third in the nation in
Okay.
save percentage.
Yes.
I
So
was
how
really good.
how's it gone since?
And then this last year, it started off not so great. I think I finished the year like 53% save percentage,
Yep.
which honestly, I don't give a crap about save percentage, but our team also didn't do as well this past year. And that's something that
Yep.
I definitely felt. But I mean, we lost a lot of guys. I wouldn't say that's an excuse, but I think this mindset I had going into this year was, all right, I had a really good freshman year this year. Like, I need to step it up. I'm the captain of the team. I'm all these things. Everybody's counting on me. And that pressure, I don't think even came close to the pressure I put on myself, which was just like save every single shot, like no matter what. And I definitely suffered from that mindset in the beginning of the year. And then towards the end of the year, my coach sat me down. He's like, what's going on? Like, you're trying to save every single shot. And I would get down on myself, and he's like, just relax. And ever since we had that conversation, and I thought back to surfing and stuff like that, it helped a bunch. And I got hot towards the end of the year. Our team got hot towards the end of the year, but fortunately it didn't end as we wanted it to. We missed our conference tournament by a goal, which was rough.
So let me ask you this. What is it about speaking with a mentor, and in this case it's your head coach, that allows you to basically take a step back and actually take that in? Because I imagine you probably said to yourself a million times, like, hey, let it go, just like, it doesn't matter about every shot, it doesn't matter. But what is it about sitting down with someone that you kind of like really, I guess, connect with? What do you think it is that allows you to then be like, you know what? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just I trust this guy. He was one of the best lacrosse players in the world, and from Canada, and he's just an awesome person. I think my parents don't really know too much about lacrosse, so I can't really rely on them. Uh, my brother we don't really talk about that stuff all too much. So it was kind of just hearing it from a different voice, and that voice happened to be him. And he's an awesome person who I looked up to. So I'm obviously, if he says anything, I'm going to listen to it. So it was just nice hearing it from a different voice, maybe. And no one really told me that other than myself. I kind of blocked everybody out that was trying to talk to me specifically about lacrosse. But when it's your coach talking, you have to listen. And I did. And thankfully it worked out.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think we all go through, is that we kind of, it's almost that we don't want to let go of the way we feel, and it's almost tough to have that sit down conversation with our mentor or someone we really trust, because we're like, yeah, man, I know I need to let this go, but it's either I don't have the courage or I don't have the confidence to actually go through it. But like kind of sitting down with that person almost allows you to access a part of you that you either didn't want to or didn't know you'd be able to.
Yeah, 100%. I've always kind of shied away from talking about emotional stuff or stuff that really gets to me. And our coach is a pretty emotional guy. So if there's one person I'm going to do it with, it would be him. So it was awesome that we had that conversation.
Lacrosse goalies are always seen, or at least, I guess, stereotyped as the wild men slash crazy people on the field. Would you lump yourself in that group?
I mean, you do have to have something wrong with you if you're a goalie. I mean, there's no getting around that. But I wouldn't really classify myself as that. I'm not all that wild. I'm pretty laid back. A lot of, like, the goalie before me would not talk to anybody before the games and be super locked in. He was kind of a weird kid. We're best of friends, and he'd laugh at me if he heard that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just all goalies are different, and a lot of them are like head cases. And I've never really been super into that. Before a game, I'm kind of laughing, joking around, just being loose, and that's kind of when I play my best. So I wouldn't really call myself too wild, but yeah, goalies definitely have something wrong with them.
Okay, so we get past freshman year. We have this incident with the shark. We're now, like, obviously we're at the hospital. You're getting all stitched up. It looks like you got, like, what, 50 stitches in your foot.
Yep.
How long are you off your foot for?
Like 3.5 to 4 months. It was
Wow.
a long, long time.
So did you? Okay, so once you kind of saw the extent of the damage, what were you thinking about then?
At that time
Did
in
you
my
have any
life,
Did you have any concerns about, oh no, I won't be able to do, like, was it more about, oh no, I can't surf, or was it more about, oh no, I can't play lacrosse?
it was all, oh no, I can't surf. And that was it. And that was good because that 4 months, I mean, you get lacrosse. I got lacrosse taken away from me. So therefore, like, once you get something taken away from you, you realize how much you actually like it. And I've been with lacrosse down in Florida. There's a fall season and then a spring season and then your school season and a summer season. It's so much that I never really went like a month without lacrosse. And once I did that, I really did learn to appreciate it more.
So obviously that was an inevitable step in your career that you had to have it taken away in order for you to see the value in what you were actually doing.
Exactly. Yep.
So now again, we're kind of piecing this along here. You've come to the acceptance, oh shit, I'm going to be off my feet for 4 months. Did you do any kind of physical therapy or anything like that?
Yeah, I went to physical therapy. I didn't take it all that seriously. I would skip out on a lot of classes, but luckily it wasn't my big toe. If it was my big toe, I would have had to gone through extensive physical therapy. But it was mostly breaking down scar tissue and just being able to move my toes up for balance purposes. But nothing too major with physical therapy.
Was it overly painful at that point?
Yeah, the breaking down of the scar tissue. I mean, if anybody's had like a major surgery, they know that can be a pretty painful time, especially on the top of your foot. It's a pretty sensitive area, so I would go in there and be in definitely some pain during that process.
Okay, so now obviously you're starting to get back on your feet. You've now reestablished a thirst for lacrosse. What is the plan of action from there? Because you're like, yo, man, I don't know what I can do with my foot. Because I imagine you had some pretty lingering damage in that sucker, right?
Yeah, definitely some ankle mobility and learning how to run again, but I picked it up pretty quickly, and it was just kind of the mental side of like not wanting to like get hit in the foot or not wanting people to touch my foot. That would still hurt, but the mental side was definitely greater than the physical side of it.
So obviously there was that mental hurdle that you had to kind of go through. What was the point? What was your tipping point when it came to that?
Uh, I
Can you
wouldn't
can
really
you
say.
recall can you recall a time where it was just like you went through a practice or you went through a training session and you were like, oh wait a second, like I wasn't thinking about it at this point, or was it like an actual defined moment where like you got hit and you go, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember like one time I got hit in the top of the foot, and ever since then it's been fine. But I think it was just like a slow transition out of it. I really don't think there was one kind of defining point.
So now that you have this again, like I said, this thirst for lacrosse, your foot's all healed up. What's the process now about your pursuit of playing at the next level?
Yeah, so at that time it was kind of okay. I want to start on my high school team this upcoming year, and I got the starting spot, and we made it to. I ended up doing pretty well. Our team ended up doing pretty well, and it kind of all worked out from there. But I still missed that huge summer for recruiting purposes. Kind of brought brought me down a little bit because you would see all these kids recruiting, and then you'd play them in these summer tournaments, and you'd be like, I'm better than them, and like, why are they going to some huge school and I'm not getting looked at by anybody? So that was probably the roughest part of kind of the comeback process and missing all that lacrosse. But once I got the starting goalie spot at St. Thomas, I took a breath and kind of people would say it'll all work out. And it was tough to hear that, but it's kind of what I had to do.
So, how do you know that you're that good, right? Because obviously, you can only see what you can see. Is this something that you're going off of from like people that you trust, or is there just game film that you watch? Like, how do you like ensure that you're just not in your own head being like, well, I think I'm better than them. Like, why am I, like, I feel like I'm deserving of those positions. Like, how do you balance that out with not like having a big head, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, it was tough and something I haven't really thought about too much. But I don't think I was ever arrogant by any means. But you would play with these kids and you would be in the same drills as them. You'd be against the same shooters. You'd be taking the same shots. And I felt like I was making more saves. And unfortunately, being from South Florida, it's not a hotbed. So they would obviously go up north and play better competition than I was playing. So
Okay.
that could have played a part. But I don't know. I've always kind of had a quiet confidence in me, and I bet on myself. And that's kind of what you have to do as a goalie. You can't really. You got to be confident in your own ability.
I think that's a very good point. That idea of betting on yourself. Um, are there experiences within your life that have kind of pulled you into that mindset?
I think growing up with an older brother, it taught me to kind of stand my ground and not take any crap from everybody. He was a wrestler, so he beat me up pretty good, and I had to stand up for myself, and I couldn't really get pushed around my whole life by him. So I think that kind of sharpened me a little bit and taught me to be like have that toughness about me and that quiet kind of confidence.
So you start kind of getting some eyes from the D3 schools. What D3 schools were you looking at a time?
I visited like Union, Tufts, Middlebury, a couple of the NESCAC schools,
Yep.
and yeah, like some of those schools, uh, my SAT wasn't high enough. My SAT was high enough, but then they went with another goalie, and that kind of crushed me. So so I was still in the process. I would not say by any means I was heavily recruited. So it was a tough process for me.
So walk me through the conversation um, with St. Joe's in terms of like you having to kind of convince or at least sell yourself to be a goaltender there.
Yeah, so they actually never saw me play in person, which for a school to take a goalie who they've never seen in person is huge. But I had a coach from down here who wasn't even my coach. He reached out to St. Joe's and he said, "Listen, I have a really good goaltender. If
Mm.
you guys need one," and they said we already have a goaltender. So I called St. Joe's and I'm like, "Listen, I know you guys have a goaltender, but but like, would you guys be willing to take another? And kind of begged for my case and pleaded.
Yep.
And yeah, I get a call. That was with the assistant kind of goalie coach, and then I get a call back from the head coach saying that yeah, he would love to take me, and he definitely took a chance on me. I took a chance on St. Joe's. I don't think they were really expecting me to be fully kind of bought in and anything like that. But they took a chance, and I think it's worked out for both of us.
So one of the things that I always like to see and like to do is, especially in a situation like yours where you're going from essentially an unrecruited lacrosse player to being a goalie, starting goalie and captain of a Division One team, is the idea of paying it forward. And I imagine that there are some younger athletes that are probably hearing this story, hearing your tales of adversity, because it's not just about a shark bite. It's about the recruiting process. It's about kind of being overlooked a little bit and having to kind of stand up for yourself. What would you say to someone, an individual, a young individual, who's maybe going through a similar process of adversity, that they can, like, some words of advice or some of your perspective that can maybe help them along their journey?
Yeah, I think it goes back to just betting on yourself and believing that you should be there. I mean, that was one thing that kind of kept me going. Like I started applying to other schools, to Florida State. I applied to just because I was like, all right, this is
Mm-hmm.
this not going to work out, but it's just sticking with it. And if you thoroughly believe in yourself that you can do it, then you have to shoot for it. Because one thing I don't like is regretting stuff. So I just wanted to be like, listen, I'm gonna get on to a team, whatever team that might be, and I'm gonna try. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. But I'm definitely going to give it a shot. So it's just that never give up mentality in the recruiting process, especially. That's you're going to go through some pains. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy and you can just say, oh, I believe in myself. And that's it. You gotta put in the work and actually do the actions involved in it. But it goes back to toughness. It goes back to betting on yourself and just kind of your upbringing. And it all worked out for me. So, and it worked out for my brother too, who wasn't recruited. He played Division II lacrosse, and then he's on an MLL face-off guy now, playing in the pros.
Oh,
So
nice.
watching his process definitely inspired me to kind of stick with it.
So you talked about obviously having a belief, and like once that belief is there, like what's the next step? You mentioned work, but like what does that mean to you, and what would that mean to somebody who's trying to kind of follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I mean that work definitely it involves lacrosse, running, strength training, stuff like that to be the best player you can be. But specifically for lacrosse, you have to get on the phone and just call these coaches and just it leads to really awkward conversations. I'm not gonna lie. Like you'd
Mm.
be like, hi, like I'm Mike Adler, I'm a goalie from Florida, and they'd be like, oh, I have a goalie, and I'm like, I know you have a goalie, but would you be interested in taking another goalie? And it's an awkward conversation, especially for a 17, 18-year-old to have kind of. And I didn't love it. I didn't love kind of boasting about myself, but it's something you would have to do. You had to sell yourself to these coaches, which was tough. But it's just being the best player you can be. It's going to these recruiting tournaments and not just making plays for yourself, but helping teammates. That's the kind of stuff they love. And I think once St. Joe's learned about who I was as a person, that's kind of the thing that gave them the ability to go over the hill and offer me a spot in the team.
You definitely didn't disappoint as you played Hobart this year. Looks like you had a 20 save game against Hobart in a 12-11 victory. Can you kind of take us back to that day and what clicked for you on that day?
Yeah, it was like our first warm game of the year, I remember. So it was an awesome weather. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold, and it was alumni day, so we had a huge crowd, and I was kind of just starting to figure things out this past year before the game. And I made the first save and kind of just felt really good about it. And my defense played well. And that's kind of all the credit to them was I was just seeing the shots that I like to see, and they were doing an awesome job. And that game kind of just clicked, and we ended up pulling one out in overtime. But I'm not going to sit here and say I won the game, but the defense just played amazing. So that's kind of why we won it that day.
Yeah, I've definitely been in those situations where, like, once that first one happens, you go, okay, like, I got this. And it almost like falls, the water falls downhill from there. What do you think it is from one game making 20 saves to another game where you're like, I can't make a save? Like, have you found something in your career thus far that's a defining factor in those two things? You mentioned defense kind of like stepping in and playing their part, but is there something that you have as a variable that you like look at to see, hey, wait a second, am I checking this box in order for me to put myself in a situation where I can make those saves?
Yeah, I think there's some technical things that are involved in that. My feet would be too wide. I'd be gripping my stick so tight if I started letting in a bunch of goals and getting pissed off.
Mm.
And when I have that hand so tight, I can't move, and I get like frozen almost. And once I realized that, it stopped happening. I would just be like, all right, relax, it's over, and move on to the next shot. And once I loosened up that grip, you prevent those long runs from happening. And as you know, lacrosse is a game of runs. A team can score 5 in a
Mm.
row, and you got to be able to move past that. And that was one thing that I struggled with this past year, and I finally figured it out towards the end.
So it's that having that short term memory, whether it's good or bad, and I guess kind of pulling what you were talking about earlier. Just now it's a 38 special song, "Hold On Loosely." So the lyrics go, "Hold on loosely, but don't let go. If you cling too tightly, you're gonna lose control." So yeah,
Exactly.
I think it's probably a bit of that when it comes to wanting to make the saves almost too much, that you're trying to make things happen instead of like maybe the game coming to you a little bit.
Exactly. I mean, that's just from a goalie. You can't make every save. I don't care who you are. You see it with the top goalies in the world. They're not going to make every save. And I would put that pressure on myself, and it just wasn't healthy, both mentally or physically.
Okay, so now that you're going into this is going to be your redshirt senior year, redshirt junior year. You have 2 more years eligibility, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so kind of going into this year, with St. Joe's, what are you anticipating? What are you expecting? What have you been doing this summer to prepare you for this upcoming season?
Yeah, so I had some problems with my hip, not kind of just my groin area. So I was doing physical therapy into that for that, and I just got cleared to go full speed. So I've been working out pretty hard, but I've been doing super goalie specific workouts. So I don't really care about how much I bench. I don't really care about what I look like. I care about how fast can I get my hands to the ball, or how well can I move laterally. And that's something I've been focusing on this summer, is just being super into my sport specific training regimen. And then we have a young team going into this year, just like last year. So I think we have probably 8 seniors, including myself, and then maybe 10 juniors, and then all the rest are freshmen and sophomores. So we have a super young team, and leadership wise, I've been reaching out to the younger kids, and especially the kids who are coming in, and making sure that they're acclimated and they know what to expect when they get up to St. Joe's. So those are kind of my main goals as both the captain and just as a goalie.
Going back to the workouts that you've been doing, is there any specific kind of training that you do as a goaltender that you can kind of share with us?
So I've been working out at this place up in Deerfield with a trainer, and it's a lot of band stuff. So just lateral movement put a band around your ankles, and try to react laterally. And it's awesome when you get a ball in there and maybe a stick in your hands, and then your feet kind of coordinate with your hands. So I've been really focusing on that, and that's good for my hip as well. And then like anti-rotational stuff for like the
Mm-hmm.
off-stick hip saves. So like I think they're called landmines, where you're on your
Yep.
knee and you're. So I've been doing a bunch of those, and then I shoot, at least I try to shoot 3 or 4 times a week, and I try to bring all that together, and I think it's been helping me thus far.
Do you have specific guys that you work with in terms of your shooting?
Yeah, so the past 3 years, I shot with the same kid who went to my high school and played for Lehigh and had a breakout year there. But he unfortunately graduated and moved to New York City. So I've been struggling to find shooters this summer. So I've actually been shooting with a high school kid down here, Cade Goldberg, and he's really good, but it is tough. I mean, living in South Florida, it's not a hotbed. There's not a million kids who want to shoot in 90-degree weather. So it's tough to find them, but that's kind of who I've been working with, and I think we've been doing a good job this summer.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I coached Cade up at the All-Star game at the Showtime Showcase in Western Connecticut a couple weeks ago. And speaking to that fact, do you think that's one of the hindrances of lacrosse in Florida in general? The fact that there isn't this like hub of lacrosse where it's like, realistically, if you want to go get shot on, you live in Lauderdale, this person lives in like Boca, you got to travel 30 minutes just to get shot on by somebody, right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely it's tough, and especially when there's a lot of people. For me in high school, there was a lot of people around me who just didn't want to play lacrosse. All they wanted to do was surf. So I would go off with them, and I think South Florida, this is just my opinion, but there's so many things to do constantly that lacrosse sometimes takes a back seat. While if you're in kind of Long Island during the fall when it's 50 degrees and it's dark out, you're
Yep.
not going to want to you're going to want to hit the wall or go to the gym or something. You're not going to want to surf in that weather.
Yeah, I think the same thing goes in line with like why there's never really going to be a great college South Florida, either college or uh, professional team in any sport, just because it's like, there's so many other things to do. Like literally, just going to the beach is something to do, and you can do that almost every day of the year. So it's almost makes it a hindrance to progress in this area in general. Like I guess, right?
Oh, 100%. But then on the other hand, you have Christmas break when lacrosse, you're not allowed to kind of come. No one's there at any program for the entirety of Christmas break. So in South Florida, it's 75 degrees and beautiful, while up north, it's 30 degrees. So you're more inclined to play if you're in South Florida than if you're up north. So last winter break, I had a bunch of buddies come down, and we kind of played lacrosse, and it was like a little training camp. So it can go both ways, but yeah, it's definitely a big thing, and there's a lot of things to do, and you're definitely right about the pro sports thing.
So, you're coming to the end of your, academic career here at St. Joe's. Do you have kind of thoughts of what you want to be doing after you graduate? What are you studying now?
I'm studying finance, so I'll be majoring in that with a minor in real estate. So I don't really know exactly what I want to do yet. I've had a couple internships, which I've learned what I definitely do not want to do, and yeah, I'm just gonna kind of take it day by day and figure out what I want to do next when I get there. I'm definitely gonna go to some sort of grad school. I don't know if it's gonna be my MBA or what, but kind of figure it out when I get there.
In your time academically and also doing internships and working, as much as you can, do you find that there is benefit to being a Division I athlete and kind of talking to those individuals who you're either interning with or working for?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have a huge alumni network at St. Joe's who are super into the lacrosse program and are constantly giving guys on our team internship opportunities. And that's something that lacrosse has over, let's say, football. Football, you have to go back in the summer. And I was friends with a lot of football kids, so they never had the opportunity to get those internships. So I think that's a huge advantage for lacrosse players. Is just it's one of the only sports where you can get internships. I know baseball, most of the college kids play in summer leagues, so they don't have that opportunity. So, but it definitely helps people who play lacrosse. It's a big community, but it also has the small town feel where everybody knows everybody, and lacrosse players tend to be pretty successful people. So it's awesome kind of reaching out to them, and they're always eager to talk to young people.
What do you think it is about lacrosse that creates that natural tendency for success after college? I mean, obviously, you're in a position now where you can't necessarily, you know, wholeheartedly experience that since you still are in school. But you see people who have graduated and they're, they're for the most part they're probably successful. I imagine, right?
Yeah, I think it has things to do with just being on a team and working hard with your teammates. Uh, Obviously, there's a toughness factor, and people know that when they recruit athletes and lacrosse players specifically, that they can handle adversity. They're somewhat mentally tough. They can get criticized and still manage to come back from that. And I think a lot of kids that don't play a sport and that don't play lacrosse specifically, they get yelled at and they kind of just melt and they don't know what to do. So if their boss is yelling at them, it's just kind of like, oh, my boss hates me, instead of like, my boss is
Mm.
just trying to make me better. And I think that's a huge advantage in the lacrosse community.
So, do you see yourself coming back down here, or you think you might be a transplant Philadelphian there, Mike?
I don't know. I definitely want to live maybe somewhere for 3 or 4 years after college, somewhere new. But I think Fort Lauderdale is the greatest place on earth. So I'm definitely going to move back here and maybe raise a family and do stuff like that. But that's down the road. So I don't know. I don't like to look too far ahead. I kind of just like to take it day by day. And it's worked out so far. So hopefully it puts me in a good place at the end.
Well, I think that might be the surfer mentality coming out in you there, Mikey. So this summer, along with the training and stuff like that, are you doing anything down here, coaching wise, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've been given a bunch of private lessons this summer, and it's awesome to kind of work with kids. I actually am teaching extreme summer camp this afternoon. So I still try to stay in touch with kind of my roots and where I came from, and help out kids who are the next generation of lacrosse players and goaltenders in South Florida. And I especially love when it's a Fort Lauderdale kid. I mean, Fort Lauderdale, I think, is so much better than Delray Lacrosse and Boca Lacrosse. So I got to help out the Fort Lauderdale kids more than everybody else.
Did Aquinas win the state championship this year?
They didn't, but they made it to the state
Oh, they
championship. They
did.
lost.
They lost to was it
Yeah,
to
Ponte Vedra.
Ponte Vedra. Yeah, out of nowhere, I think they upset Oxbridge. So they were on a run, like you said. It's a sport of runs, but obviously Aquinas has quite a pedigree when it comes to being competitive in the state level, eh?
Yeah, and it's cool to see, because at first there was like 4 or 5 teams that could win a state championship, and now there's probably 10 or 12 teams that can win a state championship. So that just shows how much the sport's really exploding down here.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking about lessons and stuff like that, do you have like an email address or some way that we can get a hold of you? Maybe we can set that up. So just in case anybody wants to get some lessons from old Mikey A, you can help them out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug my phone number. It's 954-494-7119. And if anybody needs any help till mid-August, they can feel free to give me a call, and they'll be in for a tough lesson, but it'll be good.
That's awesome, man. Hopefully, we'll get a couple extra spots in there for you. And I know there's plenty of goalies in the South Florida area who'll be willing to work with one of the best goaltenders in the country when it comes to saving the ball. Mikey, I really appreciate your time. And I think your story is amazing. We got kind of got an idea of what St. Joe's might be in for this year. Why is this going to be your best year as a goaltender yet?
I think just mentally, I'm all there this year. I think I've got out of, maybe the first year was a bit of luck, a bit of just a really good defense in front of me, and then the second year was we had a rough year. So I finally experienced some adversity. I experienced some bad games, and this year I'm really putting it together mentally, and I think I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm saving the ball the best I've been saving the ball, and I have a really good team in front of me. So I really couldn't be in a better situation.
That's awesome. Mikey, I really appreciate your time. I'll be pulling for St. Joe's this year, especially for their goaltender. And I wish you the best of luck, my man.
Thanks, Sean. Love what you're doing on here. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that a lot. And hopefully I will be playing with you in the next week or so.
Sounds good.
All right, Mikey, you have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
And there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to my conversation with Mike Adler. I know that it was a fairly inspiring and unique perspective that he has, being a surfer and being a lacrosse player. Guys, if you like today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, review, and be sure to share it with your friends. New podcasts come out every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Be sure to subscribe to stay up on the latest of the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity podcast.